Very good. If you haven't heard this, I just want to alert you that Nairobi is playing host to the African Climate Summit. It is going to bring together more than 13,000 delegates from around the world. And actually yesterday I was talking to the CS Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Soipan Tuyun. She was actually telling me that more than 13 heads of states and governments, have confirmed their attendance to this meeting that is going to develop what is going to be dubbed as the Nairobi Declaration. Oh yeah. And this conversation is going to be upgraded and, of course, transmitted to the COP28, which is happening in Dubai. So this is going to be a major meeting of African minds, the best of brains, just coming together to discuss issues around climate change and how it is impacting Africa, bearing in mind that in terms of green gas emission, Africa is the least contributor in the world. Dr. Mwenda Mithika is a seasoned expert on matters climate change. He's the Executive Director at Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, and he's joining us now to share more insight on the upcoming conference, what we need to discuss, and the issues that are supposed to be handled. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning, Dr. First of all, I want to hear from you. Are you attending and participating in the conference?
Certainly, I'm not only attending, but we feel we want to be part of the summit in terms of designing even what you are calling the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration. So we are very critical stakeholders as the civil society. I represent the main non-state actors platform, that is non-state actors steering committee, bringing together all the actors which are non-governmental, that is faith-based organizations. In that committee we have the farmers organizations, and this is across Africa. We have the indigenous people. We have the main international civil society organizations. We have the trade unions. We have the African section of African private sector. We have the young people. We have those work on biodiversity. We have up to 11 clusters of non-state actors bringing together thousands and thousands of actors, because we feel that this process, much as it is going to be more driven by government, the input of the people, as you have rightly said, the issue of climate change is so important that it cannot be left to only one stakeholder group. We need really to hear the voice of the people, particularly the people at the front line of climate crisis, because they are the most affected. So it is an opportunity for us as Africans to be heard. And when this summit was conceptualized by the African Union, by the way, it is the African Union summit being hosted by the government of Kenya, among other partners. And when it was being conceptualized by the African Union, as really we have been putting pressure to the African Union and African institutions to really provide a forum, a platform for Africans really to articulate their issues, to come together and unify their voices in terms of really consolidating themselves and their voices and their efforts, so that when we go into international conferences like the COP, really we are speaking into one voice. In fact, I'm very happy because of the enthusiasm which we are received in terms of responses. I'm just from AMSEN, Africa Ministerial Conference on the Environment meeting, and we could hear the way everyone is really excited about this conference, because it's the first real convergence of Africans really bringing ourselves in such a forum, really to say this is what we want to see the world doing in terms of adapting to climate change, in terms of building resilience of communities at the front line of climate crisis, in terms of mitigating the effects of climate change, reducing the greenhouse gases, and then what finances, where do we get the money to deal with all these issues? Of course, there are so many contentious issues at the global level. So we are going to define as Africa, where do we stand on these issues? Are we responsible? And those who are responsible, what is their role There is international convention, the UNFCCC, United Nations Convention on Climate Change. There is also the Paris Agreement. And what we are implementing, the NDCs, National Determined Contribution, the investment tools as a result of the Paris Agreement, which each country like Kenya has said we are going to do this in the agricultural sector, in the livestock sector, in the waste management, in the energy sector, in the transport sector. So this issue of climate change goes beyond that limited space of environment and science, what has been happening.
What meeting? And experts are saying that this is some sort of a COP for Africa.
Yes.
And this meeting is going to set the ground for the issues that are also going to be discussed at the COP28, which is happening in Dubai. And bearing in mind that you attended the SB58, which is the technical team that is supposed to craft a text that is going to be discussed at the COP28, is it too late for Africa to be meeting now to try and come up with an agenda that will be discussed at COP28?
You know, the international dialogue process and any negotiations which has high stakes as climate change is quite a very complex issue. It is a give and a take process. And so I cannot say that we are late. The conversation continues. I think even after that, we have got other platforms which are going to continue with the discourse process. And so any opportunity for us where we can bring, particularly us as Africans, together, really to strengthen our voice, is a welcome move. That's why we welcome this summit. But our hope as the civil society is that it is not going to be just limited to the leaders. We need to see the voices of the people there. We need to see the voice of the faith communities. We need to see the voices of the indigenous people at very local level. We need to hear the voice of the young people. We need to hear the voice of smallholder farmers and everybody who is affected. And so that is where we are. I know there are a lot of things which are happening now, but I'm sure at the end of the day, this is going to be, the Nairobi Declaration will be a declaration which is going to be owned by everybody across Africa.
Very good. If you're just joining us, I mean, we are having this conversation on the upcoming African Climate Summit. We are in the company of Dr. Mithika Mwenda, and our conversation revolves around the conversation that will take place here in Nairobi. I want to hear this from you. When you look at, the proposed Nairobi Declaration, and I'm sure that you know that there have been a number of declarations that have been issued in the past. How then do we make these Nairobi Declaration, count on matters climate change?
I'm very happy that you have said there are many other declarations which have come. And at the civil society, just to give to take you back, I'm just from the AMSEN, because AMSEN, those are ministers for environment, who meet annually. And every time they meet, and in the other forum, including the African Union, including the United Nations, and everywhere, every time we make declarations and decisions are made. The problem which we have been having with these decisions is the implementation. So they are plethora every year. They are declarations. But so what we're asking is, yes, we are going to have the Nairobi Declaration. Are we going to have it? Will it be implemented? How far will it take us in consolidating the African voice? So to us, it's not just the issue of having the Nairobi Declaration. How acceptable is it going to be? How are we going, all of us, to own it and say, wherever I'm going, I say, this is the Nairobi Declaration, it was universally accepted, and this is where the document, the declaration, we are taking everywhere. And that's why we are challenging our leaders, including the president, who is the host, that we really need to see everybody involved. Of course, perhaps you have seen some grumbling here and there that there are section of stakeholder groups which feels excluded. But we know that it is not too late. I know he's making every effort to ensure that everybody is involved. We know even the interest at play within the organizing of this, because these are a very serious global issue. Everyone wants their piece of it. And so what we are saying is the Nairobi Declaration, and even this process, you know, the outcome of a process is as good or as bad as the beginning and as its process. And so what we are saying is, we have time really to put what is right for Africa, what is inclusive for Africa. We build the ownership for everybody. I saw at the ministerial actually, and when the director Pacifica was presenting at the AMSEN, the update.
Yeah, I want you to hold your thoughts here, because we need to go to Kisi now, and then we come back and we have more conversation on how to build an all-inclusive Nairobi Declaration, ensuring that we do not leave anyone behind. Well, if you're just joining us, our conversation this morning is around the upcoming African Climate Summit, which is taking place here in Nairobi from the 4th to the 6th of September. More than 13,000 delegates coming for this conference, and of course, at the culmination, there will be the Nairobi Declaration. And so, how do we make that document count? How do we as Africa push that document to become the proper climate representation voice for Africa? That is a conversation that we are having here with Dr. Mwenda Mithika. With Dr. Mwenda Mithika, he's the Executive Director of Pan-African Climate Justice. Our conversation this morning is the upcoming African Climate Summit, the way forward. Before we went for that break, I mean, we were talking about how to make the Nairobi Declaration more inclusive and to make the voice of Africa on matters climate change. And we are talking about inclusivity. Please pick it up from there.
Yeah, so before you cut me off, so I was just giving you an illustration of how, you know, contentious issues are in terms of the global geopolitical interactions. And so it's not going, and it will never be easy to develop such a document because it has a lot of interest at play. But as civil society, and we have raised this, is how implementable are some of the decisions which our leaders pass every time. Every year we have the Africa Ministerial Conference on the Environment happening, like it is happening in Addis Ababa. And definitely they will come out with a very good recommendations. We have attended several conferences, like even COPs, and many other, you know, forums like that. The concern which we have been having is, why are we having so many meetings? If we can implement even decisions of one forum, I can assure you we will not be where we are. So we need really commitment of leaders, particularly the political leaders, that they have to commit themselves that whatever, for instance, will come out of Nairobi will be binding for everyone in Africa, and we are going to implement, because even the NDCs have seen the nationally determined actions which we are supposed as countries to undertake as Paris Agreement to really meet a particular threshold on emission reduction and building resilience of communities. And so, if you look at it now, we are at the process right now as we are speaking. We are in what we call the GST Global Stocktake. That is reviewing since the adoption of the Paris Agreement in France in 2015. We are now 7 years. And so, climate is becoming, there has been several reports, including the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, which is the latest, which came out in March. It is telling us it is really worsening. Look at across the world, including Europe, where there is a lot of wildfires, you know, and you know, torrential rainfall, like what has been happening for 4 consecutive seasons in the Horn of Africa, drought which has never been before. So we are asking, why then are we meeting and we know the problem, is because we don't look at even what we agree on. If you look at the decisions and what we agreed in Paris, we could not be, because be having the problem, because we know and we agreed on the milestones which we have to meet. So to us, what we want is, yes, let us agree on that declaration.
Yes.
Let this not be any other jamboree. When I was, we were with the Excellency, the President, in South Africa during the Pan-African Parliamentarian Summit on Climate Policy and Equity, which we hosted with the Pan-African Parliament. We actually congratulated him for hosting this all-important summit. But we say we also qualified this. We hope it is not going to be any other.
To be another talk show.
Another talk show.
For people to come and discuss.
We continue saying that. Let us have a different summit. Let us have a Nairobi summit, which people not quickly forget.
Tell me this, and I like the fact that you are talking about how do we make the upcoming the upcoming African Climate Summit, count for Africa in terms of climate change issues. When you look at the upcoming summit, the summit has been organized around 5 key thematic areas, and we are talking about energy transition, green minerals and manufacturing, sustainable agriculture and land use, sustainable infrastructure, as well as natural capital. These 5 issues, or these 5 thematic areas, do you feel in your capacity as an expert on climate matters, do you feel they capture the needs of Africa?
The framing of the summit itself, the President says, at the Chair of Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change and the Voice of Africa, alongside others, that we have to change the narrative. Because to them and to him, we have been having several conferences and they have never had any, impact. And so that's the framing. But the negotiations have their own framework.
Yep.
Of course, we need to change the way to have the African narratives on really the way we approach the climate discourse process, because mostly it is really, we have said, it is designed and framed in the context of the North, whose context does not apply for Africa. But when we look at that, a section of stakeholders, particularly as somehow very uncomfortable with that kind of agenda, because the priorities for Africa, for instance, when I listen to those main issues of discussion, and I don't find adaptation there. I don't find how we are going to build the resilience of communities at the front line of climate crisis, then I get worried.
Because there is the issues of adaptation and climate financing are not captured.
They are there, but you see, when you make something, they are saying, like adaptation is a cross-cutting issue. When you make something cross-cutting, it is not here nor there. So it is not the main thing. But in Africa, and these are issues which are even being raised not only as us as the civil society, but even the African group of negotiators, it is being raised by everybody, because we may really veer off the course. I think that this is going to be a document for the COP and negotiation to deliver during the COP28. There are issues which we may carry, then actually they are instantly rejected, because there is a framework. There is no way a meeting of 5 days can all consolidate what has been done for that years. It can only build on that.
It can only build on that.
That is what we have been saying, that in due respect of what is proposed, we need really to build on really make, for instance, business keys out of this. We make to turn really climate challenges, which we have looked at as challenges, into opportunities.
Very well.
We have been trying to do that. But the problem is, are we the problem? Some people are talking about that we should not look at ourselves as victims. We really need to be solution makers. I can assure you, those small older farmers at the very local level have been actually solution providers. You are talking about the youths whom you hosted here. What ideas do you hear from them? They have all the solutions. What they do not have is means of support. How do we support them, their innovations at local level, on water, on food, on agriculture, and many other innovations which they have? That's what we have to be discussing. So when we divert and start talking about issues which are very difficult, and some of them are really designed, we feel, not from where we sit, then we have a problem.
Very good. Tell me things. The African group of negotiators, have been at the forefront of trying to capture the needs of Africa in terms of climate change and advancing the agenda of Africa, at the global level. Are they part of this conversation? And once the conversations are held here in Nairobi, how are they going to be captured in the African group of negotiators?
I met the chair of African group of negotiators in Addis Ababa. Mwepia Shitma. He is a Zambian. And truly, when you listen to him, you feel that there is a disconnect. I met several negotiators. Remember, once this document is developed, the people who eventually pick it and go and ensure that it is put within the framework of the negotiations are these negotiators. And they have a very strong process and very elaborate process. And so when you listen to him and he feels that they have not been included, then there is a problem.
There's a problem.
And so I have seen, I left Ambassador and the PS Ali in Addis Ababa is doing the consultations. So what we want to urge them, I am interested in the success of this summit. And that's how we have stated as this platform which we have. And it is our interest, first as a Kenyan and as an African, that this really succeeds. But so that when we raise issues, let us not be seen as if we are criticizing for no apparent reason, or we want to do it just for the sake. It is our interest, and we believe that in very good faith, the president has got really a good vision for us, but really we need to listen to each other. We have not seen that.
And that is what needs to happen.
Yes.
So that we can build up a conversation that is inclusive and brings together all the stakeholders on the table.
Yes.
In 30 seconds, what is your message to the organizers of this event?
My message to the organizers, let us be inclusive and let us work together. We as non-state actors have organized ourselves, and it is our desire. And we have the expertise really to make this event a success. And we want to work together. I know we are applying for many events. We are working together, and I believe that it is not too late that we are going to sit and agree, ensure that each of us is involved and feels confidently that he is part of this process.
Very good. And I'm sure the message is home because the organizers are listening.
Sure.
Very good. And we look forward to a successful meeting that will be a platform for Africa to develop the agenda that is going to advance to the world when it comes to matters climate change.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Brian.
Mwenda, thank you. And asante sana for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Mwenda Mithika is a spoken voice on matters climate change. And of course, joining us this morning to talk about the upcoming African Climate Summit, which is happening here in Nairobi. And I've been telling you this, that KBC is going to be the official broadcaster of this event. So from now going forward, expect a lot of conversations around climate change. The kind of conversation that we have been having here is going to be increased in intensity. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You have been watching Base Check. Now it's 12:01 and time now for Tamurini. On behalf of the entire Base Check crew, thank you very much for your company. We'll see you again on Thursday. Stay tuned for better conversations right here on KBC Channel 1. Kurunzi Mashinani is coming up next. Thank you.